Two caveman tribes met with a shocking twist. One tribe preferred dry mammoth meat, while the other had a spicy sea turtle tartare. You are Grug, and you must know what in the name of the first campfire happened between these two groups. Picture this: it's a sunny day, and Grug wants to have a nice fight about whose berries are better. Life for ancient humans was a precarious balancing act between surviving and mating, hunting and gathering, and of course, avoiding becoming dinner for something with teeth bigger than Grug's problems. Your entire existence depended on alliances and trade. One wrong step? Say hello to dinner time for the saber-toothed tiger. But here's the kicker: when these two tribes met up, things got complicated. You see, they didn't just come for a chat, oh no. They brought goodies. Obsidian from one tribe, shimmering like Grug's dreams of a bigger cave. Seashells from the other tribe, perfect for jewelry or maybe just a game of ping-pong, prehistoric style. These shiny objects were like bling-bling to Grug. If you wanted to be the cool caveman at the fire pit, you needed the shiny stuff. Now, the interesting part? They were separated by about 1,000 miles. That's far. Farther than Grug's attempts to get a date with that cavewoman across the river. But hold on, kids, there's more. Before Grug could say mammoth, evidence shows that ancient humans had trade networks that span miles, a little bit like how modern-day folks trade TikTok likes across the globe. No way, like a prehistoric shopping app? But here's the crazy part: these tribes were not just swapping rocks and shells. Genetic evidence reveals they exchanged members. Imagine that husbands and wives might just switch with the neighbors. It was like a swapping party, cave edition. Hey, I'll take your spear thrower, you take my wife. Win-win. This prevented inbreeding too. Because nobody wants to marry their cousin unless you live in a sitcom. Let's count down 5 ridiculous ways these encounters shaped early human life. Number 1, trade and barter. They didn't have money, but they had the ultimate negotiating tool: food. I'll trade you a mammoth leg for 10 shiny stones. Great deal unless you hate mammoth legs. Then you're stuck chewing on a giant meat-flavored rubber band. Number 2, shared hunts. Imagine two tribes teaming up, like they were forming a prehistoric buddy cop duo, but instead of solving crimes, they were trying to not get eaten by wolves. Grug. You handle the deer, I'll keep an eye on the saber-tooth. Less bad boys and more bad dinner. And number 3, marriage alliances. Families linking up like modern-day Facebook, trying to make the best clicks. I mean, families. Oh, you have 2 daughters? Here's some shiny rocks, let's seal the deal. Grug wonders if that kind of arrangement would work today. Just swipe right on the very first cave woman? That could get messy. But here's the crazy part: sometimes it all goes south. Number 4, war. Yes, when sharing didn't pan out, they raised arms and went to battle. Grug doesn't get it. Didn't they just have a perfectly good trade agreement? Grug says no trading after dark. You figure it all out and suddenly spit on an obsidian knife. Now for number 5. Can you guess? Art. Yes, cave art might not just be doodles of hunting scenes. Some say it records both the triumphs and the battles between tribes. Grug won this battle, but such and such tribe took home the shiny obsidian. Grug's still mad about the mammoth. Shall we hang that piece on the cave wall or just call it a bad breakup story? The best part of all? It wasn't just about survival. It was social. Imagine caveman relationships today. Can you believe that guy traded his daughter for some seashells? Talk about scandals at the campfire. So after all that swapping and fighting and, yes, occasionally trading a cousin for some shiny rocks, these two tribes left their mark. They learned what worked and what didn't, and sometimes ended up with more problems than they started with, kind of like going on a date with a modern-day Grug. Sometimes he ends up with mystery meat burrito instead of a steak dinner. But it gets even wilder. Some researchers think those social networks led to new cultures and ideas. Grug thinks of it like the world's first social networking. Hello? I am Grug. Let's join forces and make a mammoth roast. We'll call it Grugbook. Just like today, establishing connections led to opportunities. They swapped ideas, tricks, and yes, learned which food not to put in your mouth, like raw fish, yuck. So the next time you complain about your dating life, remember Grug's ancestors had it even harder, sifting through the menace of saber-tooths and dinner deals that might end with wolf bites. Grug concludes with one last thought. If they could build trade networks without the internet, imagine what they could achieve today. Grug should be out there making deals, but he's stuck trying to remember where he put his lunch. Thanks for joining Grug on this wacky adventure through human history. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, or Grug might just trade your lunch for a rock. But hang on a moment, there's more. Picture this: when those two tribes met, they didn't just trade goods and brides, they traded skills. That's right. These prehistoric folks were like a caveman version of an extreme makeover show. One tribe might be experts at carving flint tools, while the other had a knack for making the best cave stew. Hey, you teach me to make fire, I'll teach you how to catch fish. Deal. That's what Grug calls mutual beneficial arrangements, unless one tribe ends up charred from the fire-making lesson. And those skills could have a real impact. Think of Grug trying to start a fire with the old friction method. But oh, Grug is clumsy. One day Grug's trying to impress the cave women and whoosh. No fire, just smoke. That's how you end up on the wrong side of a massive flint rock. Would have been better off exchanging for that sea turtle tartare instead. Let's take a quick detour into food. Ancient grubs, or groceries as we might call them, were a critical element. Unlike me wandering into a supermarket struggling to find avocados, these ancient humans had it a bit easier. They had pretty reliable ways to find food. But when two tribes collided, you had an explosion of culinary innovations. Think of it like a caveman potluck. What's on the menu? I brought mammoth stew, but Tribe 2 brought fancy clam chowder. Oh, and a side of backstabbing. Now here's the crazy part: do you know what happens when two groups combine their culinary skills? You'd get meals so good, your ancestors would weep. Just imagine them dining like royalty around the fire. Do you prefer your mammoth served barbecued or smoked, with a side of sea turtle dip? What do you mean you don't like sea turtle? We can't feed you every night. Talk about high stakes at dinner time. And even the weather was a player in this prehistoric soap opera. Grug can picture it: a tribes meeting on a bright sunny day, then boom! A sudden rainstorm. Okay, everyone. We either build a shelter together or we all become cave-dwelling drowned rats. Nothing like the threat of becoming a wet snack for a predator to forge strong collaboration. Let's shift gears. Ever wonder about those superstar cavemen? Yeah, Grug's talking about the ones who became legends, not just for their hunting skills but for their charming personalities. They became the life of the cave party. You know, the ones who could tell the best stories about battles and yet hold your attention just talking about flipping rocks. When Grug met the tiger, Grug took a big stick. But bad news, Tiger took Grug's lunch. If those guys hosted the campfire conversations, they were definitely the ones trading stories instead of goods. Now, keep in mind that this trading wasn't just about what's in your cave, it was also about survival tactics. The more tribes shared ideas, the better chance you had of avoiding the local resident predator. Look, tribe, here's the trick. When you hear growls, run. Unless you can throw a mammoth leg at it, then you might just have a chance of living to see another torchlit gathering. Need more proof that ancient tribes were networking? They were resourceful. Tool-making materials were highly valued. Grug could never wrap his head around this. Why would you spend hours getting materials from 1,000 miles away when there's a flashing rock right here? Well, turns out those shiny tools were not just pretty, the refinement was key. Better tools meant more food, and hey, better meals. What Grug wouldn't trade for a nice sharp spear tip instead of the blunt stick he tried to hunt with yesterday? And speaking of tools, let's talk technology, or, as Grug calls it, rock science. Tribes shared this knowledge too. Flake by flake, they perfected what was arguably the original Swiss Army knife for a caveman, perfect for cutting, scraping, and very niche fire starting, if you're not Grug, that is. Grug remembers the last time tried to use a rudimentary knife. Let's just say, the cave floor hasn't forgiven him since. But then, in the middle of those trade meetings, Grug can't ignore the elephant, or rather, the woolly mammoth in the room. Or shall we say, the hungry pack of wolves lurking nearby? Those moments brought tension. Imagine tribes huddled together, trading sounds, whispers, and edible offerings, only to notice a pack of wolves eyeing free meals. Hey, those shiny rocks better be worth this impending doom. Keep trading or we might not make it back tonight. Nothing like the pressure of wildlife to keep negotiations spicy. And while we're at it, let's not forget about the fashion. You think tribes just wore whatever they found? Oh no. It was a real scene. Raccoon skins on the left, mammoth furs on the right. Look at Grug's new hat. Fashionably savage. These tribes dressed to impress, showcasing their best furs during trading ceremonies. Maybe they were hoping to impress the opposite tribe's cave women. Grug thinks it's like today's world where everyone's out to flaunt their style, only Grug's fashion statement is a mess of animal skins and leaves not so chic. So, after the trading sessions, they'd likely sit down for some serious socializing. A little gossip about the last hunt, perhaps? Did you hear about that other tribe who tried to tame a saber-toothed tiger? What's next, a deal with a woolly mammoth? The rumors flew fast around the fires just like they do today. And you know what's amusing? These trading practices helped create relationships. If you thought modern dating was complicated, try setting up a union between tribes. Okay, you want our daughter for your fancy knife? What about a ceremony roast? We'll call it risky business. Imagine the negotiations that went on. In the end, while all these interactions were based on trade, gifts, skills, and sometimes battles, they reflected an astonishingly communal way of life. While life was dangerous, each tribe learned to stand together to survive, invent, and yes, swap funny stories about the mammoth that escaped and didn't escape. They literally had no time for pettiness. It was all about survival, much like being in a crowded cave trying to get your friends to grab dinner. But here's the real kicker. These tribes laid down the groundwork for future civilizations. They built networks, and those networks led to cultures morphing over generations. They say it takes a village. Well, it took a mountain and a whole lot of mammoth legs. So as we look at those understanding, trading early humans, Grug is proud. They traded fear for friendship, dinner for trust, and found out that life was better together. And now Grug recalls the simple truth. Even in ancient times, rocks were worth more than gold if you can land that mammoth deal. Grug chuckles. So if you're ever feeling overwhelmed by modern dating or friendships, just remember, our ancestors went through a whole lot to get where we are today. They dealt with the thrill of trade-offs, the risk of saber-toothed tigers, and yet caught a good laugh around the fire. Who knew life back then could be so relatable? Thank you for joining Grug on this fun journey of ancient trading. For more chuckles and insights on how we evolved from those peculiar caves to our modern survival techniques, like, comment, and subscribe. Grug will be back with some wild tales, hopefully without the saber-tooth ones. Now, Grug is off to find lunch. If only there were a takeout option.